Once there was a young woman named Sarah. She led a quiet life in a small house near the bustling city center. Each day after work, she would walk the familiar streets, her mind brimming with thoughts of the day's tasks and responsibilities. One evening, as she strolled home, she spotted an old man sitting by the side of the road. His clothes were tattered, his hair long and unkempt, and his face bore the signs of years of hardship. His eyes reflected a deep sadness, and it struck Sarah with an overwhelming sense of empathy. She had never seen this man before, but something about his appearance moved her deeply. He looked like someone who had endured years of homelessness, someone who had lost everything: his dignity, his home, and his hope. Sarah felt an undeniable pull to reach out, to offer something kind, no matter how small. Approaching cautiously, she asked softly, "Are you okay, sir?" The man looked up at her, his gaze softening, and his voice came out weakly. "I'm all right, Mississippi," he replied, "just tired and hungry." Without hesitation, Sarah offered, "Would you like to come to my house and rest for a while? I can make you something warm to eat." After a brief pause, the man nodded gently, a glimmer of gratitude flickering in his eyes. "Thank you, young lady. I would appreciate it." Sarah led the old man back to her small home. During the walk, she began learning more about his story. His name was Thomas, and he had been homeless for several years after losing his job and his family. The streets had become his only refuge, a place where he found a fragile sense of survival. As they reached her home, Sarah helped Thomas inside, where she offered him a seat on the worn-out couch, while she busied herself in the kitchen, preparing a warm meal. She couldn't shake the thought that something about Thomas felt familiar yet unknown. When she returned with a steaming bowl of soup and a slice of bread, Thomas looked up, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the spoon. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. Watching him, Sarah felt a surge of admiration. There was something quietly powerful about his resilience, his ability to hold on to his sense of self despite everything. After the meal, Thomas leaned back comfortably, his face more relaxed than Sarah had seen in days. They began talking, sharing stories about their lives, their dreams, and their fears. Thomas recounted his past as a carpenter, a man who once found purpose in building things with his hands. His voice became steadier as he reminisced about the work he once loved, his old home, and the life he once had. "I used to love my job," Thomas said softly, "but when I lost everything, I lost a part of myself." Sarah listened intently, her heart aching for him. She knew many people faced hardships, but hearing Thomas's story brought a deeper understanding of just how difficult life could become. In the days that followed, Sarah invited Thomas over regularly. She made sure he had food, and they spent hours talking, sometimes about the simplest things, other times about the complexities of life. Sarah noticed a glimmer of hope returning to Thomas's eyes. One evening, as she prepared a cup of tea for him, she noticed something unusual. Thomas had brought a small, dusty toolbox with him. "What's that?" Sarah asked, curious. Thomas smiled slightly, his eyes lighting up as he held the old toolbox close. "It's all I have left," he said quietly. "These tools were my livelihood once. Even if I lost everything, I still have these. They remind me of who I was." Sarah felt an immense sense of respect for his determination. Despite the pain and loss, Thomas had clung to something that defined his identity, his craft. Over the next few weeks, Sarah saw Thomas slowly regain his sense of purpose. He began working on small repairs around her home, fixing broken chairs, mending shelves, and even repairing her fence in the backyard. One afternoon, Sarah came home to find Thomas carefully carving a small wooden figurine. It was simple, a bird, beautifully detailed despite its modest size. Her breath caught at the sight. "Wow, that's beautiful," she said, truly amazed. Thomas looked up from his work, his expression thoughtful. "It's been a while," he said softly, "but I still have the talent. It's a part of who I am." As weeks turned into months, Sarah's home became a workshop of sorts for Thomas. His presence brought life and energy into her home, not only through his craftsmanship but through his stories and laughter. On one particularly memorable evening, Sarah asked if he ever dreamed of starting something new, a space where he could continue his work. Thomas's eyes lit up. "I've been thinking," he said slowly. "Maybe it's time to open a small carpentry shop. I know it's a big dream, but I have the skills, and I feel ready." Sarah smiled warmly, her heart full of encouragement. "I think it's a wonderful idea," she said. "You deserve to succeed." Together, they worked toward making Thomas's dream a reality. Sarah helped him find a small shop near the city's outskirts, a space where he could fully embrace his craft once more. With her support, Thomas's dream took shape. People began to hear about his work, his beautifully crafted wooden pieces, each imbued with the resilience and love he poured into them. Thomas quickly became known as one of the best carpenters in the area. His reputation spread beyond the city as clients requested his unique pieces, appreciating not just the craftsmanship but the story behind every piece. Meanwhile, Sarah saw a man she had once pitied become a beacon of hope, a symbol of redemption, strength, and the power of kindness. One evening, as they worked on a new project together, Sarah reflected on the journey they had shared. Sitting by the window with the sun setting in golden hues, she felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. Thomas had turned his life around, and in doing so, he had inspired not just her, but everyone who knew him. Their friendship had deepened, and their shared experiences had transformed their lives. Sarah understood now that the simple act of kindness had sparked a change far greater than either of them could have imagined. Together, they celebrated the beauty of resilience, the joy of giving, and the extraordinary impact of hope. As the conversation slowed down, Sarah noticed Thomas looking at her differently than usual. There was something in his eyes, a softness, a kind of warmth she hadn't seen before. She felt a small flutter in her chest. "Sarah," Thomas said, his voice lower than usual, "I just want you to know how much I appreciate everything you've done for me. You've helped me more than anyone ever has. You gave me a second chance." Sarah blushed, not quite sure what to say. She had been kind to Thomas because she cared about him, but now his words made her feel something new. She looked down at her hands, unsure whether she was imagining things or if something else was happening. Thomas stood up slowly and walked closer to her. "I don't know if I've ever told you this," he continued, his voice softer, "but being around you has made me feel alive again. I haven't felt this way in a long time." Sarah felt her heart race. Was he saying what she thought he was saying? She had always seen Thomas as a friend, someone who had gone through a lot and needed her help. But now, as he stood in front of her, looking at her with such kindness, she began to wonder if there might be more to their relationship. "Thomas," Sarah began, but she wasn't sure what to say next. She was confused, and yet there was something in her heart telling her to listen. He smiled gently, his eyes not leaving hers. "I know I'm not young anymore, and I've been through so much, but the way you've helped me, the way you've believed in me, it means everything to me. I can't help but feel something special when I'm with you." Sarah's mind raced. She was a single woman, and she had never expected something like this to happen with Thomas. He had been a stranger, a homeless man on the street, and now here he was confessing his feelings for her. The room was quiet for a moment. The only sound was the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Sarah didn't know what to do. Part of her felt honored, but another part of her was nervous. She had never imagined herself falling for someone like Thomas, someone who had faced so many struggles. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw sincerity, and something deep inside her made her realize that perhaps love could come in unexpected ways. Perhaps the bond they shared wasn't just about kindness, but something more. "Thomas," Sarah said finally, her voice shaking a little, "I didn't expect this, but I'm glad you told me. I'm glad you trust me like this. I need time to think about it. I'm not sure where this could go, but I do care about you." Thomas nodded, understanding. "I didn't mean to rush anything. I just wanted to be honest with you." With that, the air between them felt different, not heavy, but full of new possibilities. Sarah wasn't sure what the future held, But in that moment, she knew that whatever happened, it was a defining moment for both of them, a turning point etched in their memories, one that neither could have anticipated. Sarah's gentle smile graced her lips as she looked at Thomas, a warmth spreading through her chest. It was a fleeting yet profound moment, a spark igniting something deep within her, something unfamiliar yet undeniable. The night continued to unfold, but there was a distinct shift between them. An unspoken possibility hung in the air, heavier than before. Sarah couldn't ignore the way Thomas had seamlessly become a part of her life, weaving his presence into her daily thoughts and quiet moments. She found herself reflecting on what this could mean. If it was the beginning of a new chapter neither had anticipated. Days turned into evenings, and their bond deepened. Conversations stretched late into the night as they shared hopes and dreams for the future. One evening, after a leisurely dinner, they found themselves seated on the couch, wrapped in a comfortable silence. The ambience was calm, peaceful, yet somehow electric. Sarah's eyes caught Thomas's, and a genuine smile settled on her face as she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. His presence had become a grounding force in her life. Thomas's mood that night was buoyant, his gaze tender and his smile soft. Sarah noticed something different, an intensity in his eyes she hadn't seen before. There was a certain warmth, a vulnerability, that seemed to unlock a part of him she hadn't fully understood until that moment. Slowly, almost as if testing the waters, he leaned closer. His steps were measured, patient, waiting for her cue. Sarah's heart quickened, her breath caught in her throat. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she wasn't afraid either. Before she could react, Thomas gently pressed his lips against her cheek, a simple, tender kiss that sent a rush of emotions through her. The touch was unexpected yet felt natural, grounding, and sincere. Her cheeks flushed, and for a moment, all the noise of her thoughts quieted. She met his gaze, searching for clarity and finding something real, a deep sincerity, a quiet strength that she hadn't anticipated but now fully trusted. "Thomas," she whispered softly, her voice barely above a breath, still processing the unexpected moment. "What does this mean?" He smiled, a reassuring yet earnest smile, his eyes conveying a sense of calm and understanding. "I think we both feel it, the bond between us. And while I don't want to rush anything, I needed you to know how deeply I care." Sarah felt an emotional mix, a surge of warmth and uncertainty swirling within her. Her focus had been so firmly on helping Thomas through his struggles that she hadn't fully realized how her own feelings had evolved. She hadn't expected this shift, this connection that felt both natural and profound. As Thomas extended his hand, a gesture of comfort, she took it without hesitation. In that moment, a sense of peace enveloped her, a quiet reassurance that they were moving forward together, not alone. Without needing further words, they rose from the couch and walked slowly toward her bedroom. The path was quiet, yet filled with an unspoken promise. Sarah's heart beat louder with each step, nervous yet hopeful. She stood at the doorway, the anticipation palpable. Thomas turned to her, his expression gentle, understanding. "Sarah," he murmured, "I don't want to rush you. I just want to be close to you if you're comfortable. Whatever happens next, it's about respect and care, not pressure." Her heart swelled at his words. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew in that moment that she wanted to experience this with him, in the safest and most genuine way possible. Their connection wasn't about haste, it was about trust. Slow and steady, unfolding with each shared glance and quiet touch. The evening was tender, filled with soft laughter, meaningful conversations, and moments of vulnerability that deepened their understanding of one another. The night passed slowly, and with it, Sarah grew more certain of what had been building between them, not just a fleeting attraction, but a foundation of respect, kindness, and mutual growth. As the hours faded into the early hours of dawn, Sarah reflected on how unexpectedly beautiful the journey had become. A new chapter in both their lives, one filled with trust and exploration. One step at a time, they were embracing a future they hadn't planned for, but were both willing to nurture. Thank you for taking the time to watch our videos. If you find the content useful and interesting, don't forget to like, share, and especially subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. Our channel will always update attractive, inspiring, and useful content for you. Click the bell icon to receive notifications as soon as there are new videos. Your support is the biggest motivation for us to continue to develop. Thank you and see you in the next videos.